Simon Atkins here, your brand new apartment specialist, helping you buy, invest and relocate in Perth. So Perth market update for November 2024, and the big changes are mainly the fact that there are more listings on the market in Perth now. They've upped a little bit, and the other thing is there's a little bit of rent relief in that it's tapered off, well, not so much tapered off, it's just stopped the burgeoning growth of the last 2 years. So they're probably the two main things that have come out of this video, apart from other things that I'm going to mention, of course, just to get us updated with as to how the market is moving in Perth. So first thing is the Perth median house price, according to the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia, is 720,000, and expecting that to be about 750,000 by the end of the year. So when the new figures come out, we'll see how that correlates. And of course, we've had huge growth in the last 2 years, particularly the last year. So October last year, we've had about 22% growth since then up until this point. And over the last 2 years, we've grown a third, so 33% increase during that period of time. So the Perth market's been moving obviously very strongly, and there's nothing to suggest that anything is really going to change that much going forward. So just showing you the screen really quickly in REWA, the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia, the property trends graph here. So we can see back in November 2022, so 2 years ago now, 541,000 was the median house price back then. And you can see since then, in the last 2 years, we've gone all the way up to 720,000 where we sit now, October 2024. And that's an increase of 33% over that period of time. So house prices in Perth have grown by a third in 2 years. And of course, this is looking to continue. So we have about 4,800 properties for sale in Perth at the moment, which is about 5% higher than a year ago, but still incredibly low in terms of the amount of stock available to any purchasers. So just for context again, it's normally an even market is around about the 13 to 14,000 listings on the market, which makes that a fairly even market between buyer and seller. So still very, very low in the listings department. So here we can see the Perth Market Insights listing and median selling day. So what are we looking at here? So we've got in this bar graph in the background here, so we're seeing two graphs here overlaid. We can see these kind of Manhattans, if you like. These are Manhattan towers showing us how many listings are on the market. And as you can see, the big change over since about February 23 is listings have been dropping, and they've just come up a bit here in November 24 to 4,800, a low back here of less than 3,000. And that's really due to the springtime sales. People tend to wait through the winter, through the colder months, and then put their house on the market. A lot of agents tell people to do this, put their house on the market as the warmer months come into spring and summer. And of course, that increases the listing. So that's really what we're seeing there, an increase in listings. Of course, still very, very low because, for some relevance around those numbers, listings for an even market around about 13 or 14,000. So we're still extremely low in terms of the amount of stock available. And if we look under here, we're still seeing median selling days. So this is the amount of days or the median selling days to sell a house. So that's just come up a couple of days, but still very, very low. And of course, this also tells us that there's still a lot of high demand in the market as well. The vacancy rate at the moment in Perth is 1.9%, and that's about 12% higher than a year ago. So that just means the vacancy rate is, of course, there's a few more rental properties available in the market, and of course that's probably been driven by the fact that investors have been driven over here because of the returns, the high rental returns, and the value in the market. So it's creating a little bit more stock on the market for those people looking for rental properties. But again, at 1.9%, it's still pretty low, given that an average is around about 2.5 to 3.5. So just a little bit of context for that as well. we can see on this graph here, or in these figures, I should say, that WA has seen the strongest rise in new lending in investors. So we can see at 42% compared to the other states here, or is increased in lending to investors by 42% in the period of June to August 23 to 24 here versus 23 to 24. So in that last 12 months, we've seen a 42% increase in lending to investors, as I say. So really the standout here out of most of the other states. And you can see first home buyer has dropped by minus 1%, and owner occupied has increased a bit as well, 13%. So investors really pouring into the market over here. So on this graph here, we can see a couple of wiggly lines going along here. One is the rental median days to rent, which are these ones in the background here. The ones I wanted to focus on were these two here, the housing median rental amount per week. And you can see since around about Feb 2020 or so, it's really exploded over the last few years. And you can just see just recently from around about May, we've had for houses, we've had the rental stabilise a little bit at $650 a week. So that's a little bit of relief after this burgeoning growth that we've had back from around August 2020. It's just been crazy. And these are the apartments as well, which just normally mirrors the housing. But you can see it's just kicked up a little bit here, and it's closed the gap between apartments and houses. So, there's obviously some apartments out there getting some very good rental returns, which is pretty much the case across the board, really, for everything at the moment. A good graph showing us where the median rentals are, or rental dollar amount per week are in Perth. And on this graph here, we can see that rental affordability has obviously plummeted. We've seen rents go up, as I just showed you, and since 2021 or so, the affordability of rentals obviously dropped significantly, and the worst on record, in fact.
So, of course, immigration has a big bearing on property prices. You want people to be coming into a place to maintain prices and indeed keep the increases going. If people are moving out, then you would expect prices to be potentially falling over a period of time. These kind of things don't necessarily happen overnight, but they will happen if that continues over a period of time. But of course, Western Australia doesn't have any problem with that, because we've been leading the nation with immigration, and that's coming mainly from a large net increase in people coming from overseas into Western Australia. We hit the 3 million mark of people living here in Western Australia earlier in the year. And we've had 3.1% increase in population growth to March 2024, which was when the last data was done, and that's leading the nation.
And just to go with those increased population numbers into WA that I talked about, the highest influx of people from net migration is kind of dovetails into this, which is the completed homes needed to be completed to meet the population growth. And you can see here that Western Australia is falling behind the most out of all the states, and they kind of go together, really, don't they? So we're getting large amounts of people coming into the state, and we can't build enough homes to satisfy that demand, and it's getting pushed further out. The shortfall is getting wider and wider all the time. So from an economic point of view, Western Australia has done incredibly well economically. This compares June 23 to June 24, and you can see Western Australia's streets ahead of anywhere else in terms of the economic growth. Of course, that creates jobs and brings people to the state as well looking for work. So all these things have an impact on property prices.
So another important consideration, of course, is interest rates, because interest rates determine the value of money If you're borrowing money, it's going to determine what your repayments are going to be. So it effectively determines the price of the property that you're buying, because that's the repayments that you're making. So the big four banks are suggesting at the moment that February 2025 is the time when we're going to be looking at a reduction in rates. Are we going to? Who knows? I mean, we've been hearing about this for quite some time now. Obviously, time will tell, but this could fan the flames even further in terms of pushing prices. And of course, we don't even really know whether the Reserve Bank reducing the rates will mean that the banks will pass on all of that rate, some of that rate. We're not 100% sure. It seems like it would be a bad look if they didn't do it, because people at the moment are suggesting that cost of living is very high, etc. And it would be very, very bad PR for the banks to not do that. But of course, will they reduce 100% of what the RBA reduce, or 80% portion of it? Who knows? But time will tell. And if interest rates, as I say, are coming down next year and they start that trajectory further moving down, then hold on to your hats, because this will be, we've already got enough drivers in the market as it is. It's like I said, it's just like putting gasoline on the fire. So of course, some of these stats that I've been showing to you are interesting to know. You could look at a whole bunch of other stuff, I guess, as well. I've just picked out a few things that I think, a little bit more interesting. I'm not an economist, and if I was, I'd probably be giving you some kind of forecast that 10 other economists would be, arguing about themselves. So my take on it is, as always, that it depends on where you are in the cycle, and we're 2 years into that at the moment, and we've still probably got another 4 years or so of that to run. So it could be longer than that. As I always say, it's not an exact science, but we are in that part of the cycle, and for me, that is the fundamental thing. All these things have a bearing, of course, and interesting to know, but being in the cycle, or knowing where you are in the cycle, is the thing that I think you need to look at the closest, because that will determine how well you do out of any purchase that you make in the property market.